I'm here to talk about understanding the why behind consumer behavior. A little bit about myself. I work at Epsilon, now sister company to CJ. Within Epsilon, we have different components. It's a big company. I work within the data division. What we do is we go out and we get data from as many places as we possibly can that our clients can use to gather insight, understanding, learning that will inform and make better marketing strategies and ultimately execute on those programs. The part of the data team that I work on, we actually reach out directly to consumers to ask them to complete a survey. It's actually 20 to 25 minutes long. We ask them information on their shopping habits, ailments, financial services, donation habits. And what we ask them to do is give us permission to reach back out to them on behalf of our customers via online, email, and direct mail. So we ask about 3 million consumers a year in the US fill out our survey, and 750,000 in Canada do that. And our job is to recruit people to fill out the survey. We're now part of the CJ affiliate network, and we're trying to grow that side of our business to get us some traffic and some completes. We also then have to market that data. We got to grow revenue. And then also what we do within that, because we have access directly to consumers and we have an email and we have an opt-in and a permission to communicate, we can actually reach out to those consumers and do primary research. We can ask them questions on behalf of our clients with regards to any questions, problems, challenges that they have. So basically with me getting our data directly from consumers and then also working with consumers to get research, I have a real appreciation for talking directly to consumers and how much they're willing to share. You would be amazed at how much they will share with you, and a lot of them really want to. So what I'm going to be talking about today is understanding the why, where in some cases you can just go ask consumers, so think beyond some of the information that you already have. Fun little story. I was telling my kids, I have 2 kids, 13 and 15 years old. I know you're jealous. And my 15-year-old said to me, "What are you coming to talk about?" I said, "I'm the why behind consumer behavior." And she said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, you know, people see ads and sometimes they buy and sometimes they don't. And it's really good to understand why they don't buy, because then you can make your ads better moving forward." And she said to me, "I can tell you why their ads don't work." "Why?" She goes, "Because they suck." Okay. And she said, "They don't have a coupon. I'm not doing anything with it either." So a little harsh, a little crass, but the concept's the same, right? She says it sucks, but what she really means is it's not relevant to her. It's not interesting. She doesn't care about it. So in her mind, it sucks, and she's not going to do anything about it, and she's not going to buy the product. So all of us think through kind of this marketing funnel. I did mine horizontal instead of vertical for some reason. But if you think through all the different steps along the process in terms of does a consumer, who do you actually want to reach out to? You know, probably not 100% of the population. There's some subset that is the most appealing and probably most interested and most likely to buy your product. Some people are going to see your ad, some people are going to click on it, and some people are ultimately going to purchase. And we keep focused on that ultimate, I made up the numbers, 2%. Which is great, because that's the key, right? At the end of the day, if we don't get purchase and the ROI of the program doesn't come through, it's not worth it. But what I get really interested in is, what about the 98% that didn't engage? What can you learn about that 98%, or even if we use the 68% of the people who are actually in your target market, what can you learn from them to change what you do moving forward to then have different creative, different offers and potentially engage them? And that's really what I kind of want to focus on today. What I want to do first is, we as marketers, we get all caught up in our space, right? We're all about our products, we're our marketing plans and what we're doing. But let's step back and think like a consumer for a little while. Guess what? They don't care about our brands. They've got their own priorities, they got their own things going on, they've got their to-do lists, they've got all of that, where we're really not a priority, even your most loyal consumer that's out there. Now the good news with that is that's why we all have jobs. Because it's our jobs to make them care and to make them buy. So what I want to do first is, I sort of talk about, that's that consumer, but let's think of a typical consumer, and I used myself. So here I am with my kids and my husband, and what my typical day is like. Like if I think about really what I'm doing on a daily basis, I am so focused on all my to-dos that I've got to get done from work, from my kids, commuting, any other of my things that I have to get done in a given day. I'm not thinking about your brand unless it's something that's going to help me in that given day with what I'm doing or what I need to get done, or it's a service that I use. Also interesting, as you can see, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of the different sessions I've been to in the past couple of days of cross-channel and the multi-channel consumer, and I'm a pretty good example of it right there. If I look at all the different devices I touch in terms of I'm on my phone first thing in the morning to check my emails, I'm on the radio on my 45-minute commute into work, I'm on my email, this, that, and other. I'm touching everything, and that's a lot of different opportunities for you to break through to me. But ideally, you want to be somewhat consistent or target those messages depending on that medium. So that's just me. The fun part we as marketers have is I'm but one of 240 million consumers that are out there. So coming up with something that's going to appeal to me is one challenge. You're not going to also do that and come up with a one-to-one message for every 240 million or 60 million consumers who are in your target group. So what we can do is create like-looking groups. At Epsilon, what we have is created something called niches. It's a classification system where we've taken everybody in the US and we've put you into one of 26 different niche groups. We actually have 130 super niches. But basically to put like consumers together based on your age, your stage of life, where you live, your attitudes and your behavior. So here's what I look like, roughly. And then here's a few other examples. So how do you come up with messaging or something that's going to break through in everybody's chaotic daily life? What's going to appeal to me with my 15-year-old and my 13-year-old and my busy career and my work and my job and buying groceries and cleaning the house may not be, probably isn't going to be the same as somebody who's in that tireless on the move, who's younger, single, more urban, doing other things like that. So classifications are great because they really help us put people into groups and make it more containable versus trying to continually go to one to one to one. But still a challenge, but also an opportunity if we can figure out, think of your own consumers who buy your products, which groups are most likely to purchase your products, which ones would be most interested. Conversely, which ones are not buying and is there an opportunity? So you have all of these different groups of consumers in terms of what their interests are, what their habits are, what their attitudes are. On top of that, another thing that's happened, we've been talked about a lot, is multi-channel and mobile. So what devices are they using and when are they using them? Because that's another little complication factor to make our lives fun. This is interesting. I've seen different statistics on this from different people with different angles. Where we pulled this from is Epsilon. We deploy a lot of emails for a lot of different clients. And what we're able to do is commingle all of that data and pull analysis and results out of it. And what this is looking at is, over the past year, what are some different trends we've seen across multiple channels with regards to engagement and opening and behavior. And you can see, no surprise, the statistic of the shift to mobile. But what's interesting is it doesn't mean desktop's dead. It just may mean that there's a specific time when that's the best channel or the best device, we'll call it, to reach the consumer. So you can see here what we see. Basically, peach guys times for desktop, no surprise when you're at work during the week, right? 11 o'clock in the morning, you've gotten in, you've read all your emails, you finally have a chance to breathe. That's when you're going to go through and take a look at stuff. Or 4 p.m. on the weekend. Conversely, smartphones, first thing in the morning. Makes sense. What's the first thing you do in the morning? Me, anyway. Take a look. What have I missed? What's going on? So no surprises there. Also interesting, couple little facts is you can see the switch from, even though more people are opening on a mobile device, there's not as much conversion, which actually there was a statistic yesterday in the session in the afternoon where they talked about conversion, where conversion on a mobile phone was about, I think it was about 2.5% they had, whereas on desktop was about 4%. So this is showing consistency. Doesn't mean it's not showing value, because from an attribution perspective, they could have just gone somewhere else to do it, or they saw it on their smartphone and then they went to their desktop and ultimately converted. But just interesting to see the different ways of how consumers can interact. So I've got different consumer groups and I've got different channels and times of ways to reach them. How can we leverage that and how can we do it and how can we think like a consumer to break through and reach them and get them to do something for us? So what we did, I thought to start this off is, again, keeping in mind of how can we think like a consumer, was how can we reach out and talk to them and actually get some feedback on some ads. A lot of times, and a lot of customers use A/B testing. And one thing I want to be pretty clear on is I get the value of ROI and A/B testing, but there's some times when it's really valuable to hear directly from consumers about what they think. So what I did, because I can, is randomly picked 4 ads. No rhyme or reason except for the fact that I tried to pull from a few different verticals. And we sent them out to some consumers who we have an email address for and asked them to give feedback on it in terms of did they like it? Would they buy? Would they click? And having seen the ad, what's the one word they would use to describe it? So it's always, I find, fascinating. You work all this time to come up with this creative, you have all this insight as to where it's come from, and then to hear directly from the consumers in terms of what did they actually think about it. So I'm only going to go through 3 of them. It'll get a little monotonous. First thing to think about, though, is who is getting your ad, and in this case for us, who is getting the research. If you're sending things out to your own group of consumers, every file is slightly biased in some way, shape, or form based on who buys your products and who engaged with it, and our file is no different. We're predominantly female. It's grocery shoppers who reply to our survey and fill it out. So the people who answered this were 80% are female, no surprise. Interesting though, only 13% are in the market for a car. So if I'm that car ad, there's a whole bunch of people I hit that aren't going to be interested in my product. Now, if your ultimate goal is branding and long-term awareness, not a bad thing, but if you're looking for a quick convert, not such a good thing. They like to shop though. I've got lots of shoppers in here, buy lots of groceries, they buy lots of clothes, so great market for my checks and my clothing ad, but not many people plan to take a vacation. So just interesting stats we asked consumers ahead of time, which again talks to, I work in the data world, I'm always about targeting and picking your right consumer. Some of these may not be the right consumers that we should have gone to, but we took a random sample and that was our intent and why we did that. Okay, so the first ad, you're all consumers. First word that comes to mind when you see that? Yeah? So this is a word cloud. What we're able to do is consumers enter in one word and then we can take it, and then basically the bigger the word, the more mentions. So what's interesting is you get some literal feedback, right? It's a jacket, it's a coat, it's probably warm. You get some positives, it looks comfortable, it's cute, I'm interested, it's on sale. And then you get some negatives where, like, it's ugly. It's sloppy, I don't like the look of it. So after that we asked what was their intention to purchase. And actually, I don't know whether this is good or not. It seemed kind of low to me. 17% are interested in buying. What we actually said, about 22% of people liked the ad, so pretty good. 18% of people wanted the jacket, 17% would click. And then about 23%, what was interesting is would go and check the ad on a website. And of the people who would go check the ad on the website, 75% of them would also click. So you're getting an incremental amount of people who would just go to the website. And why did they like it? There's enough there to pique their interest in terms of either the style, the product, the price. Great, did its job, right? I got some people who are going to move through to the next stage. What I find fascinating, equally fascinating, or more so, is who's not interested and why aren't they? Because I don't look at this as a lost cause, I look at this as an opportunity. So who wasn't interested? It really boiled down to the look of it. Some people didn't believe it. They thought the ad was a little schlocky. So we know from previously, these people are heavy shoppers. This particular product just didn't resonate with them. So they're not a lost cause audience. You just need to give them something different. And what could it be within your product selection that could be of more interest? Apparently something a little more tailored would be needed. And then, questions around the ad, things like that. So again, where I find asking this question, why, is it opens up opportunities to go back to these people with something that could be relevant, and because they're still viable. These are people who could still purchase. They're in this market. So let's look at our car ad. So this is a predominantly female audience. I'm not an auto expert, but probably some biases there a little bit in terms of the level of interest. But you can see, again, literal, car, small, automatically assume it's expensive, dark, but some people like it, it's sporty, so a lot of different things that come back to it. So again, we ask, how many people would be interested? So only 11%, which actually I thought versus the 17% for the jacket was pretty good, given the dollar amount of this purchase. It's a lot of money, and people aren't buying this very often. Any, call it 3 to 6 years, I'm guessing, is the average. And there was certainly some elements in the ad that pulled people in. It did its job. They liked the mysteriousness, the car itself, but some fun things that I'm always amazed what people jump to when they see was that it's a gas-saving car. So they automatically jump from the small to it's fuel efficient, all on their own, which I always find fascinating. And why aren't they interested? No surprises here, I don't think. I'm not in the market for a car. It's out of my price range. The ad's boring. So some elements here are, okay, this particular creative execution just didn't work for some of these people. They didn't reject the car or the opportunity to purchase, just that particular creative execution. So again, opportunity there. Some people automatically jump to price, which I get, but what I also don't know is if people don't even know how much the car costs. How do they know that it's out of their price range? It may be, it may not. So again, I always like to look at this as what's the opportunity of what else you could do and how you could reach out to these consumers with something else. They're not a dead lead. You just have to approach them in a slightly different way. And last one, it's the fun one. Single word? Yeah. This was the most consistent, this one. So imagery definitely came through, really worked, relaxing beach, tropical vacation. And interestingly, if I hop through to purchase intent, highest purchase intent. If you go back to the beginning, only 17% thought they were going to take a vacation. Almost 40% of them say, I'm interested in. So this just went out in September. Literally, we fielded this about 3 weeks ago. I don't know if people have the fall blahs already, and they already need that get me through the next 3 or 4 months for those of us who live in the north. But high interest, and really interested in terms of the ad just worked. The imagery, the offer was really compelling, both from the percentage off that was advertised and the all-inclusive factor. So a couple different things that came into play here that they really liked. And it was interesting on what they didn't find, what they didn't like about it. Was, again, not all lost causes. You've got people there who, I just don't have the money right now. Okay, great, maybe longer term. Somebody's already booked a vacation, so you just missed them, but great, let's get them for the next time. And other people, they like to stay in the continental US, or they don't know this particular destination, it was the Dominican Republic. Great, still a viable opportunity, just need to have a different imagery or a different location that you could advertise for them. Orlando, San Francisco, something like that. So again, there's still opportunity to go and talk to them and make something happen. So hopefully that was, again, this is just quick and dirty research that we ran that we thought would be interesting. What I'll talk about for just a little bit before I show some case studies of things that we've done with some clients is, so why do market research? Why talk to consumers directly? Sometimes I think people think of market research as a little daunting. I know it can be expensive, it's another line item out of your budget, but there's a lot of really good reasons to reach out and talk to consumers directly, and it doesn't have to be daunting and it doesn't have to be super expensive. So some of the things to keep in mind, why talk to them? It was interesting, the gentleman from Ace Marketing, he was going through all the ads yesterday and talking about how some people just make decisions based on gut. And we do that a lot, right? It's what do we think we as marketers is going to have the best reaction. There are times when it can make sense just to reach out. Why not ask consumers directly if you can get their opinion? Trust me, they will tell you, they will get back to you, they will give you information, so take advantage of it. Really what market research can do is help you reduce the risk of making a mistake, improve your chances of being successful in what you want to do, and really take into account your core consumers, whether it's people you already have or people you're trying to get, to make a more compelling marketing campaign to ultimately improve your ROI and the results. So then the question is, well, I got lots of data that I can use from purchases. How much, what did they buy, how much, how often, is there incrementality? And I'm not trying to say not to use that. Most of the time, that's going to tell you exactly what you need to do, and you can run some A/B tests against those things and see what works. But there can be some times where it's really worth just that little extra step to reach out to find out the why. Because what purchase data can't tell you is why didn't they buy? What do they think about your brand? What do they like about the brand? What don't they like about your brand? What do they like about your competition that you don't have? So again, I'm not saying do this all the time. Pick your spots, pick your times, but there can be so much information you can get directly from consumers that can help you drive your business in a different way. So I just wanted to share some different spots of, okay, where in the marketing cycle can research play in? Where can you reach out to consumers and ask for information? Guess what? Anytime. But if you think of your traditional marketing, you know, I build my strategy, I develop my tactics, I pull it all together and I execute and then I measure, what are some different things that you can do to reach out to? Some are more complex and some are more simple. In the beginning with ideation, great opportunity to bounce ideas off of consumers. I use Starbucks a lot, but they're a great example of who they just have a group of consumers who are on their email file who signed up to want to be part of their innovation funnel. And they just send out emails asking for quick feedback on, do you like this color? Do you like that color? Do you like this product? Do you not like that product? It's not detailed, it's not a lot of time, it's not a lot of money, but it's a way to, A, engage with consumers, so you can actually get a side benefit of making some of your loyal customers more loyal, but also can give you some insight ahead of committing to a full-scale launch. Before you actually go out with a new campaign, we can do message testing, and I'll take you through an example of one that we did for one of our clients to pre-test some messages to get feedback in terms of what resonates and what doesn't. The ACE group yesterday, they got some amazing stuff that they're pulling together on what they can do for TV copies and advertisements in real time, and it looked like they had about a 24-hour turnaround of how likely the ad would be to perform and work. This is a slightly different way of doing it with just straight copy. You can do it with any kind, but again, get some feedback and see who is most likely to be interested, who's not, and why not, and can you just tweak prior to go out and committing to your full-scale budget launch. Segmentation, I'll talk about quickly, is another piece of step you can do with regards to taking a look at your consumers, and you can look at one couple different angles. One, let's look at your current customers and what's driving them to buy. What are their attitudes, their behaviors, and their interests, and you can break them into 3 or 4 or 5 different groups and then more effectively communicate with them. That could be a study, or when I talked about niches, you can just run a profile of, here's my buyers, we can show you which different niches pop the most, and again, different communication messages and strategies around those groups to improve performance. And lastly, what I really like is the program impact or the back end. After you run a campaign, why didn't they buy? Easy question to ask, they're going to give you the answer. Again, it can fuel into as you start that cycle again to build out your next campaigns. So I have some real life examples. A couple of them are case studies that we've done with exact clients, and one actually was interesting. I got a survey on the weekend from Starbucks, so I thought, you know what, it's a great thing to share how somebody's reaching out. So the first example is at the beginning of the cycle. This was a client who had a product in the market, was doing okay in retail, and they wanted to grow their e-commerce side of their business because they didn't have a lot of distribution, so they wanted to see if they could get a direct relationship with consumers and drive that. So their first question on that was, who's going to be most likely to buy my product online directly from me? And then the second question was, and what ad copy would work the best? So we tested some creative as well as some copy around it. So what we did first is to find out, okay, well, who's currently buying your product and what do they look like? And what we found here was older, established families, higher income, active, you know, they keep busy, they keep going, and they do shop online, but really more that snowboarding, skiing, cycling with the kids, activities that they can do together. So again, older, more affluent, kind of active. But who would buy online? Similar, but a little bit different. So this audience was a little bit older and a little bit more skewed to, I'll call it the granola lifestyle. More interested in organic, yoga, Pilates, things like that. So just, and by virtue of the nature of the product, I can't share what it is, but it was an all-natural product, so it kind of made sense. So again, just a slightly different group. So when you're going after online audience, there's a different group that you want to go to, potentially different advertisers, publishers that you want to work with in terms of where you're going to go and try and find those consumers and recruit them. What we actually ended up doing with this is we took a group of consumers who had raised their hand and said, I was interested, and we built a model and then used that model to deploy online campaigns to that audience through Conversant, actually, is who we did it with. So just different ways how that data could be used. So next was we shared with consumers 3 different creative concepts and asked them which ones they prefer. So the key things we usually ask consumers are around, is the ad believable? Do you believe what's being told in the ad? Do they like it? Would they buy? and what messages are important to them. So those are different things that can give us a lot of feedback to help out, because even if I like it but it's not believable, not going to get you very far. And if I'm not going to go and buy it, really not going to get you far. So those are the metrics we put out there. And what we found in this particular case is concept C by far was the winning concept, which was interesting. The A's and the B's are all about statistical relevance. So basically what it's saying is that concept C was statistically better than both of the other concepts. A was liked a little bit, definitely second, and B, not winning at all. So then what's interesting to learn from that is, great, I've got my winning concept, but why did they like each of those concepts? So what we came back with is some learning on each of the concepts of what did they like about A? It was that visual of the family, which makes sense. There's probably people with kids and how the whole family could take advantage of it. B, they liked the image. And then C was more around the positive ad and the connection to the brand, tied better with the brand positioning and the key attributes. So it made a lot of sense. Where this can be helpful is, even though we've got a winning concept in C, what we want to go ahead with, you can still leverage the learning from what they liked about the other ads. So key thing that came away is having some sort of visual around the family. You can still use the look and the feel of C and have some secondary images that are more family focused. So again, you can leverage the learning to continue to evolve the campaign based on what consumers tell you. So that was number one. Number two, I went to Starbucks on Friday, and while I was in there, I bought my lunch, I bought some tea, I bought a mug, and lo and behold, on, I don't even know if it was Saturday or Sunday, I got an email inviting me to take a survey. And I knew I was speaking here, so I took some screenshots. Because I thought it's nice to see for me as a consumer how I get reached out to. So the first two screenshots were, number one, they wanted to verify that I was in the store, and that number two, that I was 18 years of age or older. So those are the two pre-qualifying questions. And their value prop to me was, we want to hear about your experience in the store, and we'll give you a star if you complete this survey within 3 days. So at least there's something in it for me, but it's not exactly huge. I mean, I got to get 13 to get a $2 free drink. So what is that, 10 cents? But still, they're giving something in return for my time and my effort. And what's interesting to me when I look at this, was what are their care-abouts? What did they want to learn? So am I going to come back? That's number one. And the other things, there's really 8 key things that they focused on, which obviously I think is their core value proposition that they want to make sure happens. Number one, the questions focused around the product itself. Did I like it? Was I happy with the taste of it? The majority of the questions actually focused around the in-store experience. As it relates to the barista, as it relates to how clean the store was, and how I was treated, and was it friendly, which kind of makes sense when it's a premium positioned coffee shop and that whole in-store experience is so important to them. They want to make sure they're delivering on it, and that's what this is doing. Easy for me to fill out. It's a 7-point scale. 1, I don't agree. 7, I completely agree. So it took me a minute and a half to go through and do this, but what it gives them is some really great feedback to see where are they hitting and where are they delivering or not delivering on their core metrics and consumer value proposition that they want to make sure that they're doing. So even though there's nothing open-ended here, they're still getting a lot of really good information of where are they hitting and where are they missing, which therefore is where can they focus moving forward. So something pretty simple. They're just going out to their email database. They're asking them a few questions, but they're getting some really, really good information to see how their business is doing and what's working and what's not. The last one I'll take you through was a telecommunications company. They had a product, and it's in a specific geography, and they had gone after consumers to switch to their product. They had done online. They had done email. They had done direct mail. These people had been hit multiple times in multiple ways, and they were not switching, and they wanted to understand why not. So that really was what we were trying to figure out for them, is why were these people not switching? And this one, it was really fascinating. So the first thing you say is, who are they with now and are they happy, right? Maybe they're so happy they don't want to switch. Not so much. So 40% of people are very happy, so that's great, you're not going to move them. But guess what? 55% of people in this kind of limbo. They're not happy, not really over the moon with their current provider, and yet they're stuck and they're staying. So in most cases, you'd say, well, here's 55%, you got a huge opportunity to switch and gain share, and yet it wasn't happening. So we asked why they were dissatisfied with their current providers. And it really tied down to service. Again, one would think an opportunity, right? Just different capabilities, different features and functions that they're offering that you could be able to go out and give a compelling enough argument to get them to come over and switch to your brand. So then the next question was, okay, well, then why aren't you switching? This was really interesting. Price is huge, not surprising. Hassle. It's too much of a pain in the ass. And think about it. If you've got a phone, a home phone, a cable, whatever, computer, all that kind of stuff, you've got to call the company. You got to get a hold of somebody without waiting on hold for 20 minutes. Then you got to book an appointment. They give you a 6-hour window of when they're going to come, which means you got to stay home to be there, and then you're disconnected in the time that they're making the switch. So ultimately, it all kind of says, if you don't give me a really good reason, why should I bother? I'm okay being not really happy versus having to go through that. And that was the key insight, because what the client could then do is there's ways that you could message around this, or things that you can work on internally and operationally to have a point of difference and hopefully overcome this. So that's one angle. Why won't you switch? Key insight there. And then the second one was to ask, okay, well, what would make you switch? What would be interesting for you? No surprise, price comes up as number one. My husband's funny, he's a financial advisor, and so he's going in and he's talking to clients all the time about their budgets. And he's really noticed a shift in the past 10 years. When you look at people's telecommunications bills nowadays, it's the number one bill. $400 or $500 a month now between their cable, all their different cell phones, their home phones. It's a good chunk of money. So price, when you're spending that much, no surprise it's going to come up that high that's in there. Challenge is, a lot of times for us, the price is the price, right? As marketers, we got margins to hit, we got things to do, so we can't change that. So we took price out of the equation and said, okay, take price off the table because we can't touch that. What else could we go after? And really what it came back to that service things, different channels, different ways that we could make things more customized and meet their needs better. So a lot of barriers here for the client in terms of, and no surprise why they hadn't been able to get these consumers to switch, but it really uncovered some opportunities of, okay, if you can do something creatively with regards to messaging these consumers of how we can make this painless, this transition a little bit more painless, and give them a reason why around packaging or bundles or service, there's still an opportunity here that doesn't have to be focused just on price. So this was really interesting. Making it actionable. I wanted to try and bring some things that hopefully you could walk away and actually, okay, great, how can I do this when I get back to the office on Monday, for those of us who aren't going in tomorrow? You can do it yourself. Keep it simple. What I will say, talk with an expert. And I'll go through some extra steps here in terms of what you can do and how you can go through it. But doing research is a huge science, and there's also a lot of art. I have people who work for me. I'm not a market research person. I'm the marketer who likes to tell me what I'm learning from it. But there is a lot of skill that needs to go into this to make sure you're asking the right questions the right way, that you're reaching the right audience, that ultimately what you're trying to achieve, you actually get. So I highly, highly recommend talking to an expert. But if you want to do it in-house, I mean, that's what Starbucks has done, that's what other people have done. Here's some simple, what I would recommend doing when you want to get going. Number one, the research design, because it always comes back to this, have a clear, singular objective. What do you want to learn? What's your challenge? What's your problem? And then also, how are you going to execute against it? Because those two things combined will drive what you actually do. And I see so many clients, because they don't get a lot of opportunities to talk directly to consumers. Can I ask them this? And can I ask them this? And I can ask them this. And what was originally a 10-question survey ends up being 40. And what you were trying to achieve gets lost in the mix. So really, if it's something you like to do, you don't only have to do it once, but stay very focused on what you want to get done, otherwise you won't get out of it what you need. Who's your target audience? Who do you want to get the information from? Is it your current clients? Is it your lapsed customers who haven't bought in the past 6 months? Is it non-buyers completely? There's different audiences that you may want to go to and get the information from, so be really clear on which one of those are. And just with regards to how many people should you get responses from, I would always recommend a minimum of 100. That gives you very directional learning. So know your response routes. If you're going to call it 2% of people are going to respond, try and make sure you get a minimum of 100 just to give you a big enough pool. It'll give you some directional learning. We always try and target 300 plus if you can, so just keep that in mind if you're able to. Then you need a survey tool. How are you going to actually put that survey out, get it programmed and launch it? SurveyMonkey, Google Research, they have some online tools that you can use free of charge if it's under 5 questions. So if it's something quick and simple, why not take advantage of it? We use Qualtrics. That's our survey platform that we use and do all the programming out of, but there's lots out there. But you need a survey tool in terms of how you can put it out there so that you can get the data back and actually be able to take a look at it. Keep it short and simple. Again, gets back to the clear objective. Don't keep adding different things to it. Consumers will get confused. There needs to be some logic. There needs to be a good flow to it. And use consumer-friendly language. We get caught up in our marketing speak. Think about your mom or your aunt and how would you ask them a question. That's where you got to go when you're thinking of how to do this. A couple other things with regards to question design. This is about the science part of things. A couple of tips I keep out there for people. Make sure that when you have a question, keep it simple and clear. You want to make sure that there's no leading terms in there that are going to bias how people answer the question. You want to also make sure in their answers, make sure 2 things. One, that all of the answers are mutually exclusive. So if you're asking them about how many times have you bought in the past year, and you've got 1 to 5 and 5 to 10. I'm 5, where do I go? No, 1 to 5, 6 to 10. Simple things like that. And also make sure there's always an answer. I get so frustrated when I'm in a survey and they make me answer and they don't have the answer that I want to give. So I just pick anything because I don't know what else to do. So use an other, does not apply. Make sure it's always in there so that what data you are collecting is going to be the most accurate. So just a couple of little things to keep in mind. And then go for it. If you've got an email address, trust me, you'll be shocked at what consumers are willing to tell you. Go out there and ask them. They will give you information and you can use it to improve your programs. If you're not going to do it yourself, 2 other options I could recommend. Panel companies out there. I randomly pulled from a Google top 40 list. There's lots of them out there. What panel companies do is they actively work to recruit consumers to come in and sign up specifically to get research from different companies. They get points in return for doing that. So they can actually put your survey out to a consumer group and the right consumer group. You can give them specifications of what you're looking for. On top of that, they can usually help with actually writing the survey and programming it and probably have some strategy work in there. So it's not you can do it on a one-off project by project basis. Most of them will be able to offer to do that. Or you can engage a market research firm. We as Epsilon offer it, but other the big ones, Ipsos, Harris, and NPD Group. Lots of them out there that you can reach out to. So lots of different ways that you can go and ask why. Thought I'd leave with just some questions that if you want to go and do it yourself, you can copy these. This is the research that we did, I mentioned right at the beginning with those different ads that we put out there. This is exactly what we asked consumers. We asked them, number 1, what's the one word that comes to mind when you see it? They enter it in. You can download it into an Excel file, and then Wordle is an online tool that you can use that creates those funky word clouds. And then we use a 5-point scale with regards to asking, do they like the ad? Would they buy the product? Would they click on the ad? Would they click or go to a website? And is it for somebody just like me? So that's just an example of some questions. And another one that we use a lot is with regards to how likely are you to buy it? So this is sort of, if you've got something you want to put in front of consumers and see what they think. And then what's the main message that's being communicated? That's often good to get bounced back to you to see if what you think you're communicating is actually being heard. The other open-ended box we would say is, why would you buy? Based on how they answer that, or why would you not buy is another great one. And again, you can just output that into Excel and read 300 verbatims. It's lots of fun. So to conclude, think about the why. I highly recommend it. Think beyond the click, think beyond the purchase. No question, that's going to be 90 to 95% of the time. That's where you're going to live, that's what you're going to do. But there's 5 to 10% of the time, if there's something that's not working, something that you can't get your head around, or if there's something that you're sitting around in a meeting and you guys are guessing about what the answer is and why things are doing, think about doing this. Think about asking consumers directly about what they think. Think about when it can be used in terms of if you've got a key challenge, when you're up against a wall, when just like that one client who these consumers just aren't moving, good opportunity to do it. But like anything in business, be really focused and have a clear objective, because that's the main thing. You're going to get what you want out of it, no matter what. Stay focused, pick one thing, go in on it, and then you'll get some really interesting things out of it.